while millions of people are screaming at their TV, painting their faces, and emotionally collapsing because 11 strangers lost a game. There's a massive group of people who just don't care at all. And here's the wild part. According to neuroscience, their brains may actually be wired differently. So stay with me, because what I am about to explain will completely change how you see the sports-obsessed people in your life, and maybe even how you see yourself. Let's get something straight right away. Not caring about sports does not make you boring. It doesn't mean you lack passion. And it definitely doesn't mean something is wrong with you. In fact, something fascinating is happening inside your brain. Something fundamentally different from the nearly 60% of Americans who follow sports religiously. So let's start with the obvious question. Why do so many people care so much? Because humans are tribal by nature. For thousands of years, belonging to a group wasn't optional, it was survival. Your tribe protected you, hunted with you, kept you alive. And modern sports. They're basically ancient tribes with better branding and merchandise. When someone watches their favorite team, their brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, the same chemical responsible for love, trust, and family connection. Is real. Your brain literally tricks you into feeling emotionally connected to millionaire athletes you've never met, who don't even know you exist. But here's where it gets interesting. People who don't obsess over sports often have what psychologists call lower tribal instincts. Their identity isn't tightly wrapped around group belonging. They're more individualistic, more self-defined. They're more likely to think, I don't need to belong to something bigger to feel complete. And research backs this up. A 2019 study found that people with low interest in sports show significantly less us versus them thinking. Translation, they don't automatically hate another team or another group just because they're on the opposite side. But now things get a little uncomfortable, because what happens inside the brain of a hardcore sports fan during a game is honestly kind of alarming. You know that feeling, right? Before opening a gift. That surge of anticipation. That's dopamine. Sports fans get that hit constantly during games, every play, every possession, every near miss. Tiny microdoses of anticipation and reward over and over again. And studies using fMRI scans show something wild. Watching your favorite team activates the same reward centers as gambling and other highly addictive behaviors. The reason? Uncertainty. You don't know if your team will win. That unpredictability keeps dopamine flowing nonstop. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement the most addictive reward system known to the human brain. It's the same mechanism that makes slot machines so powerful. And here's the key insight. Your brain doesn't really care where dopamine comes from. It just wants more. People who don't care about sports, their dopamine systems simply aren't triggered by a vicarious competition, and this might not even be a choice. Research from the University of Chicago suggests that dopamine receptor genetics can predict how much someone enjoys competitive spectator activities. Let that sink in. Your complete indifference to whether the Lakers win or lose might literally be written into your DNA, but there's another layer most people miss. Sports fans experience something called begrudging basking in reflected glory. When their team wins, they say, we won. When the team loses, they lost. Notice the pronoun switch. People who don't obsess over sports are far less likely to do this. Their self-identity stays consistent. Their self-worth doesn't rise and fall based on outcomes they can't control. Their self-esteem is more stable, less outsourced. Now, before the comments explode, I'm not saying one approach is better. I'm saying they're psychologically different. And that difference is fascinating. Here's something that sounds contradictory at first. Sports fans often score higher on certain measures of empathy. They practice caring deeply about other people's struggles, even strangers wearing the same jersey. So why don't non-sports people feel that same empathy toward athletes? It comes down to empathy allocation. Everyone has a limited emotional budget. Sports non-fans tend to invest that empathy elsewhere. Relationships, social causes, creativity, ideas, nature, art. A 2021 study found that people with low sports interests scored significantly higher in openness to experience and appreciation of beauty. They're still chasing meaning, still chasing emotional highs. They're just finding it somewhere else. And let's be honest, sometimes not caring about sports is also a defense mechanism. Maybe you were bullied in gym class. Maybe sports culture made you feel excluded. Maybe the aggression and hyper-competitiveness just never resonated. Or maybe you genuinely find it boring. All of those are valid, but here's why. Sports fans and non-sports fans often struggle to understand each other. It comes down to where you find meaning. Sports fans find meaning in narrative, the underdog story, the comeback, the rivalry, the dynasty, real drama, real uncertainty, real stakes at least emotionally. Non-sports people often look at that randomness and think, why emotionally invest in something I can't influence, involving people I don't know, in a game that doesn't affect my real life? They're not wrong, but neither are sports fans. They're just two different answers to the same human need for story and significance. One finds it in championships. The other finds it in novels, relationships, creativity, discovery. Psychologists call this parasocial investment versus direct engagement. Sports fans build one-sided emotional relationships. Non-sports people prefer investing where their presence actually matters, where effort changes outcomes. Neither strategy is superior. They're just different ways of being human. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who studied flow states, found that deep absorption can come from almost anything. For some, it's watching sports. For others, it's literally everything else. And here's something quietly powerful. People who don't obsess over sports often report feeling more present in their own lives. They're not spending 3 hours every Sunday living someone else's struggle. They're engaged in their own. There's something quietly radical about that. So what does all this mean? If you don't care about sports, you're not missing out on some essential human experience. You're just different. Your brain's reward system, your tribal instincts, your empathy wiring, they're calibrated another way, and that's perfectly okay. So next time someone asks, did you see the game? And you genuinely couldn't care less, remember this. You're not broken. You're not boring. You're just playing a different game. One that might just maybe have higher stakes. And if this resonated with you, you're going to love learning why quiet people process information completely differently and why that might actually be your biggest advantage. Click one of these videos and find out why you think differently than the crowd